What's happening, folks? Welcome to the Looking for Group podcast. I'm Jesse, and with me is Al and Monica. What's happening, guys?
First podcast. Here we go.
Woohoo! Yes, we're doing the thing.
Woo! Yeah.
I feel like we're joining the fast expanding ranks of esports podcasts. Here we are.
Yeah, it does feel like you can't have a esports business or do anything in the esports business world unless you have a podcast. That's a
podcast,
prerequisite
therefore
for coming in.
I am.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of a funny zone. I've never I've been interviewed on podcasts, but I've never tried to put a podcast on to myself.
Can you tell we all have no idea what we're doing?
That's a fairly evident thing, I think, for us here.
Although Monica is really the rogue one there with the Blue Yeti microphone rather than the HyperX microphone. I don't know what you're up to with that.
Blue's my favorite color, if you couldn't tell from the backdrop here.
Yeah.
Jesse and I are more interested in this sort of tactical red hex.
Yeah.
You know, it's a honeycomb of sound.
Okay, Monica, tell me what you think. Are you a fan of the microphone with this thing or without it?
I gotta be honest, it looks a little funky with it. It looks like it doesn't quite
Really?
fit right, you know? I feel like there's still some left that needs to be covered, you know? Like for the
That's
Yeti,
true.
it goes over the whole
Okay,
honeycomb,
let me
right?
explain to you my rationale here. This looks like a regular microphone. Microphones regularly have like, this nub. Without it, it just feels like it's like a tree stump. It's got no.
It's got no hat, no winter hat.
undefined. Yeah, it looks like.
But
a
how do you?
nub.
I feel like a big part of the functionality of this microphone is the ability to. How do you manage that? You know? Oh, I see. Okay, pretty simply actually.
Very
But you kind of have to like go like this. You know, it's sort of like it's a
Yeah,
little bit of a struggle.
It is much more strenuous.
It can be a bit humiliating if you have to do it live.
Yeah.
So we set up this podcast because we wanted to talk about esports and we wanted to talk about what we have going on. So maybe we can get down to the business of the podcast. I don't know, Jay. What do you think? What's your sort of like your thesis statement behind this pod? I don't know. What are you thinking?
Behind the podcast, I mean, just talking about shit, straight up. Like, I mean, just talking about, the things we think are interesting going on in collegiate esports, touching down into high school esports, what's going on in the space, things we're doing, things other people are doing, just whatever. Trying to talk about things that are actually relevant and interesting and are moving the needle in the space in a cool way.
Yeah. Same. Maybe we can start. I don't know. Maybe it'd be helpful to sort of just give a little overview of who we are and how we came to be here. I guess it's the first episode, so we don't have to jump right into stuff. And then talk a little bit about LFG and Uni Esports, maybe too. So I don't know. Let's start with Monica. I mean, Monica, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Monica. I was picked up by the uni/looking for group team here back in the summertime. Yes, indeed. So I'm a little new to the team, but happy to be here nonetheless. And I started out working as an admission counselor at an institution, and I recognized I had an esports program, but it was an esports club. But I helped them build it into an esports program, and I realized, whoa, this is actually really cool. This is a job I could see myself having in the future. So I quit the admission counselor job and pursued esports full time and swam through the abyss of unemployment for quite some time. And then I fell into the kind and loving hands of Al and Jesse here, where we're building the looking for group. Yes, those ones precisely. And I've been working with them to build the Looking for Group platform, which is a database for students seeking entry into collegiate esports programs. It's kind of like a one-stop shop for everything you need to know regarding collegiate esports. So, yeah.
Nice. Jay, you want to go? Yeah.
Yeah. So I got my start. Well, I think actually the first point of the story of both Looking for Group and Uni Esports, and both of us, is Alex and I actually met back in probably 8th or ninth grade over video games, specifically World of Warcraft. And that's kind of where we got started in the most originic sense.
We were also IRL. I mean, we went to the same high school too.
Yeah,
So we
that's
were
right.
on both the digital and the physical planes, making
Yeah.
connections.
Yeah, we were homies, and we just sort of gamed, and we both wound up in working in higher education, getting our master's degrees basically at the same time. Then I was really involved in building the esports program at my alma mater. I also played soccer for a little while professionally and sort of had a background in coaching and running athletic programs, which sort of mirror how a lot of esports programs are run and managed. And that's just sort of how we got into it. And for me, a few years back, working in at the school at the time in the School of Liberal Arts and Education, doing esports, I saw this sort of need for resources around building esports programs. I mean, that's kind of how uni got started. Is schools were building programs. There wasn't a lot of information out there about how to do it, and that's sort of how it came to be after a few conversations with Al. And then, yeah, maybe I'll kick it over to you if you want to sort of tell your side of it and how
Yeah.
LFG emerged from uni.
Yeah. So my background, similar to Jesse's, uh, always have played video games in high school. Played a lot of WoW, a lot of StarCraft. Played StarCraft in college, and then I've been playing League of Legends, basically. Very amateur, bad League of Legends player, but still playing it for like 5 years, which is crazy. Um, but yeah, I think so. Like something before I got involved in collegiate esports, I owned and ran a tutoring business and a college counseling business. So I was working in the Bay Area with a lot of students, and I was finding in most of my sessions and appointments that like the best way to be effective and to teach well was basically to oftentimes build a connection with a kid over gaming. And that was like a shared connection that we had. It was just like an easy way of kind of sliding into speaking the same language and having that connection, and that was a really effective educational tool ultimately. So I was sort of aware of that. And then as Jesse mentioned, we created Uni Esports, and through Uni Esports, we've basically been working with colleges and universities to build programs. So that's been what we've been doing, pretty seriously for the last year and a half. So just working with a bunch of different schools, helping them sort out what's what, figure out what games they want to play. Oftentimes, as probably anyone who's realistically listening to this podcast knows, you're probably like somewhat of an insider to esports. And so everyone's familiar with a million conversations you have with folks who are just learning, help clarify what the deal is. So doing a lot of that work. And then to Jesse's question, we sort of got to this point where we realized that, there aren't very many single sources where there can be visibility for college esports programs. You have some really awesome platforms like, eFuse, NACE does a good job of helping folks, see the institutions through a little directory they have on their page. But what we really felt was, there are all these orgs, like some of which we'd worked with through uni, like the NJCAE, the ECAC, the MEAC, all of these different conferences, organizations, to say nothing about like NACE, CSL, that we're building things sort of independently. And the kind of consequence of that we felt was that students were sort of losing out, because there wasn't one place where you can go to research all the programs. So that's pretty much what we tried to build. We built Looking for Group, which is a directory that is really deep, has a lot of kind of juicy information that coaches and directors provide to us, and is really oriented at students and parents to help them find resources. Yeah.
And I'll say too, one of the biggest guiding factors, both in the creation of Uni and in the creation of LFG, is sort of the question for us of, what did we wish we had when we were
Yeah,
high
totally.
schoolers, middle schoolers, who were just obsessed with playing video games. And when we were doing it, it was a waste of time, and it often is viewed as a waste of time and counterproductive to getting a good job or doing well in school. And for me, it absolutely was those things a lot of the time. My GPA did not benefit at the time because of esports and gaming. But when I was back then, oh my God, I wish that I could have made a college decision around esports, or that esports programs existed at colleges I was looking at. And so I think that's something that we're always sort of internally tapping into when we think about, when we thought about looking for group or uni is,
Yeah.
man, it would be so dope for the kids who are coming along now to have these resources and the access to free public information that can really guide and enhance their collegiate decision making and also their collegiate experience.
Yeah. I feel like, Jay, for you too, like you you have a very high skill ceiling with games, and you really bring a lot of your, we'll talk about this in a future podcast, I'm sure, but like you've set professional sports background, and varsity engagement in college with traditional sports. I feel like you have a sort of a way of improving systematically and actually getting really good. So you've come close to being really highly ranked in a couple games and have gotten to that top point of a percentile of ranking. And I feel like, just kind of to your point, how gaming has been for you and for me too, for sure, like sometimes a detractor from academics or whatever. I think that's really because there just hasn't been that framework for us, to do it in a way that's serious but actually tied in and incorporated. And like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, gaming throughout my youth was, even if at moments it didn't necessarily positively affect my scholastic endeavors or whatever, it's still the thing I reflect on in the most positive way. All of my best friends, all of my best friendships, all of my most memorable experiences all touch gaming in some way. And if there were more institutionally supported, infrastructure at the collegiate level, at the high school level, even the middle school level, I can only imagine those experiences would have been enhanced by a significant degree. And yeah, I think you're right. I've always approached gaming with sort of a performance mindset, and I really like the intense PvP side of things. But I know, Monica, like you've had quite a journey as well with gaming, and that's been a big part of your sort of, I think, probably academic, professional, but also personal sort of trajectory. Yeah.
Yeah. I resonate a lot with what you said, Jesse. Specifically in the World of Warcraft, my game as well as a high school, middle schooler. I remember things of that game like they were real life memories. When I recall periods of my middle school and high school life, I remember what I was doing in Azeroth more than I remember what I was doing in real life.
I love that. That's it.
And all the connections that I made, most recently connected with someone who I played with over 10 years ago, just from making a post online about my experience and my journey playing video games. Definitely was your stereotypical basement dwelling nerd who was obese, and I realized I was making some mistakes in my choices, and went ahead and went on a journey to lose some weight and better myself through that. And with the support of the gaming community, I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. So like, super happy to be here and super happy to have learned those lessons for sure.
Yeah. And even there, I mean, in sort of my brief testimonial and Monica's, you get the full idea of the spectrum and the power of why esports needs to be supported at an institutional, infrastructural level.
It's so freaking popular. Like, everybody's playing it.
Everyone's playing it, and everyone has the potential to have a really positive experience, whether you're a casual gamer, somebody who's community oriented, somebody who's using it as a mechanism for self-improvement and growth, or whether you're somebody with a more competitive appetite. Everyone sort of fits under the umbrella and can benefit by the sort of developments that are happening in the collegiate space and in the scholastic space more broadly. But yeah, now that we've given sort of our three brief zones of where we're coming from a little bit. I mean, Al, maybe we could talk a little bit just about the platform and what the vibe is there and what's going
sure.
on.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, like, kind of as a segue, like that just remembering moments in game in WoW, like more than what you were doing in high school, is something I totally empathize with. I feel like I have it's kind of like a gaming like synesthesia where it's like I remember a song I was listening to or an album I was listening to a
Yeah.
ton, and like a zone that I was like questing through or leveling through, and like that has like a weird timestamp in like, oh, it's winter in like sophomore year or something. Like those, I feel like those memories are super. They really like show you what being serious about gaming is all about. But I think for folks who aren't native to gaming, some of the signals that are more important are things like, okay, what institutions are offering esports? Is there scholarship money available for esports? What are the actual kind of measurable effects of esports and gaming on student experience? And that's really, to bring the segue back together, like that's kind of what we're trying to put here in front of folks on our platform. So yeah, I think, should we just talk about like the basic functionality and like why we probably, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jay?
I think so. I'll say in a sentence
Yeah.
what it does, I think, on both sides of the house, and then you guys can pick it up. But yeah, I mean, it's basically a search directory of every collegiate esports program in the country, almost everyone. A lot of them are hidden despite how hard we look. And it really has sort of two core functions. For high schoolers and the parents of high schoolers, it's a free, open source, easy to access, data set essentially of every program and what's out there. You can search by game, you can search by varsity, whether a program is recreational, does it have scholarships. You can search by state. You can even search by more specific institutional criteria, like school size, or is it rural or suburban or urban, 2-year, 4-year, these sorts of things. And so you can really get a sense of what schools are doing what, and what school makes sense for you based on your game preference, based on your geographic location, based on your need for financial aid and these sorts of factors. So that's really what it does facing high schoolers and the parents of high schoolers. And then on the other side of the house, it's a way and a mechanism for schools with esports programs to be visible for prospective students. I mean, 19 out of 20 coaches and directors I talk to, or athletic directors or presidents, the reason they've built their program in part or in full is because of a need for enrollment. That's the lifeblood and the financial lifeblood of institutions, and esports, in one slice is the hottest enrollment program and mechanism that's being rolled out right now across campuses. And so if we can, lend a hand in helping schools just get what they've built and help their money go farther in terms of what they've invested into their program, then that's also a win on that side of the aisle too. So that's my sort of two second.
No, I think that's a good summary. I feel like that, definitely go, if you're watching, go check out the site. We're really open. I mean, we have a 3-person team, right? So we're always open to feedback and criticism and, advice about what we should build and just ideas. But yeah, I think that this podcast, I mean, we're trying to, get the word out about the platform. But really, we're also just trying to provide some useful content that's, on topic for folks who are like engaged in the scene. And that could be people on the high school level or on the college level. I think we're, just kind of round out this episode and put a coda on it. I think we're going to be talking a lot about, college counseling from Monica's perspective and the admissions angle. We're going to be talking about my experience working with students. We're going to be talking about Jesse's experience, as a member of a varsity team and, building, teamwork. See, you can tell I haven't ever played sports really. Like building like
teamwork
and then
cooperation.
teamwork, cooperation. And hopefully we'll be having guests on the podcast too. So yeah, I feel like that's a pretty good first podcast, huh?
Yeah. Way to go, boys.
Yeah.
It's a good place to end on a Friday.
Yeah. So,
Oh, yeah.
all right. So do we like wave? Like,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks for
like,
tuning in, guys. Peace out.
Thank you, listeners. Peace to you. Happy holidays.
Yes.